Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are once again on the first dev server for update Ixwa Strike, and now we're having a look at the new Chinese vehicle that is going to be gracing us at rank 5. This vehicle is a light tank, the PTL02, and this vehicle will becoming between the M113A1 tow and also the CM25. So if you're interested in the CM25, I'm sure there's at least one of you out there that is interested in this. Make sure to research it before this comes in, or even the PTZ89, so you don't get stuck with the PTL02 to research. Luckily, it's not an end-of-the-line vehicle, therefore it will have cheaper modifications than if it was an end-of-the-line vehicle, so it'll be a little bit easier to spade. And at battle rating 8.0, it already has a pretty stellar lineup around it: the Type 59, the 69, the WZ305, the tow if you're a masochist, and then also you can maybe even put it up to 8.7 if you wanted, with, you know, the two medium tanks and the PTZ as a light tank scout alternative. The PTL02 has access to a 100mm gun, and this 100mm is actually pretty spicy. So it does have access to a 2-plane gun stabilizer. This obviously helps it quite a lot, and also the turret rotation of 21.9 degrees per second vastly outdoes the two mediums at the BR. The Type 69 is 10.5 degrees per second, the Type 59 is 7 degrees per second, and obviously that's incredibly slow, but the PTL02 is double that, which is great. On top of the main gun that you have a 12.7mm AA gun on the top, and then also a 7.62mm coaxial, which is used by the loader. Now, one of the problems with this gun, though, is the reload. The reload on this 100mm is pretty long compared to other vehicles of a similar BR. If we have a look at its stats, the base is 11 seconds, its top is 8.5, which isn't great. There are much more vehicles around this BR which can way out reload this thing, which isn't great. The next thing is the rounds it gets. So if you've never played the Type 69, this thing pretty much has the same rounds. This is the 172-85, the APDS-FS. Now this has a penetration of 220, 206, 127. One of the problems with this round is it lacks a lot of post-pen damage, and it's also probably the weakest APFSDS rounds in the game when it just comes to penetration. It still has a lot of muzzle velocity, so it is able to, you know, at least get to the target quickly, which is nice, but it is backed up by a Heat FS, and the Heat FS pens 390, 338, 195. This might be the only vehicle in game, along with the Type 69, which has the same rounds, where the APFSDS is the stock round, and the Heat FS is the upgraded round, which is kind of a funny turn of events. It does get access to artillery, and also the scouting mechanics, or the modifications for the scouting mechanics, showing that it should have scouting, so that's a nice little part of its bow. It doesn't get access to MVDs or thermals though. I feel like since this vehicle is a 2000s vehicle, it probably will get MVDs. We'll have to see though on either future dev servers or the live server. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet, but really need to, is I'm pretty sure this machine is balked. So take the mobility of this machine as with a pinch of salt. So right now, this thing has an 830 horsepower engine. At 19 tons. Now, everything I've seen about this vehicle says it probably has an engine around 300 horsepower, and if this thing stays with an 830 horsepower engine, it's going to be one of the most mobile machines at its BR. It's an incredibly fast accelerating machine, and as you can see, a max speed of 100 kilometers an hour. If it stays like that, that's grand. You know, that would be amazing. I just don't think it will. The next point is being a light tank, it doesn't have a ton of armor, and what I mean by this is it can get machine gunned to death. 15mm at most on the front of the hull, 20mm on the front of the turret, and then on the sides it has 10mm, Whereas on the sides of the turret it also has 10mm. So as I said, this thing can get 50 called. On the back it also has 10mm, which is definitely not going to help its case. And even 5mm on the back of the turret. On the top it's going to get eaten by CAS as well. 8mm, so this is not stopping anything. This is a you must shoot first tank. It's as simple as that. You are not going to survive a shot unless it's an APFSDS and it goes straight through your vehicle and just misses everything, which it could do if you don't have ammo in the back here and you know, you're scooting along. The first stage ammo stowage, I'm guessing, will be labeled as this set of rounds over here, so it'll probably have either a 6 or 9 first stage ammo, which I think is fine. You know, you're not really going to fire that many rounds when you have such long reload as this, especially to finish off a few targets. The gun depression is a little bit lacking, but it is Chinese. That should be seen as a standard, unfortunately. Not many Chinese vehicles have great gun depression. The next thing is the camos. The best thing about all of these Chinese vehicles is the camos are always beautiful. Definitely something to look at. And since this one actually is still in service, it does have some really cool parade camos. So it might actually get them if some people build some of them and get them on the marketplace. And normally Chinese skins are pretty cheap on the marketplace itself. So I'm definitely looking forward to picking some up for this machine. It also does get a HE round. It pens 17mm. You're never going to use it, so not really worth having a look at. So because of the fact that it's part of an already pretty good lineup for China, you know, China has some pretty nice lineups at high tiers, 8.0 being one of them. And if this thing keeps the mobility that you can see here, you can see it goes 0 to 40 in about 2 seconds, which is, you know, unheard of. When it comes to these vehicles, it also does seem to be all-wheel drive, which is cool. You can see there how it's moving all the different wheels independently from each other, which is awesome. But you can just see it goes from 0 to 30 in about a second, and then 0 to 50 in maybe 2.5. Like, this thing is way too quick for what it's supposed to be. But if it keeps this, then I will be pleasantly surprised, because it will just mean that you can run around in your crazy Chinese vehicle and pop people as you go, because this stabilizer works all the way up to these ridiculous speeds. So we're going 65 kilometers an hour right now, and you can see the gun is as stable as ever. Now, as I said before, the post-penetration damage of the round, the APF-SDS, isn't the best, but that just means that you aim for ammo, that just means that you aim for weak spots, and you should be completely fine to be able to annihilate it. Now, we're just going to do a quick speed test just to show you how fast this thing can go, at least on a road. If only there was a flat road on this whole map. But you can easily go past, you know, 60 kilometers an hour in maybe, well, less than 10 seconds and just fly around the place and skid around it. It might be actually quite fun to go on that Seversk map and go down the road and just do some drag racing with it. And you can definitely see this thing easily getting up to 100 kilometers an hour if you gave it enough go. But the fact is, it's just a ridiculously fast vehicle, and I think it's completely ahistorical, which is why I don't want to make too much of a big deal out of it, more than I already have. So the other factors on the vehicle do give it a lot of hope. You know, the 100mm is good enough. The fact it's at 8.0 means that it's part of a great lineup. It's a lineup that is lacking a light vehicle. So with this in tow will definitely help it out. And also, it just means if you do die, it's not too much of a big deal. You can back it up with some wonderful medium tanks that the Chinese have. You even have a wonderful AA at the BR, which is something that even top tier Japan can't say. So the overall lineup is nice. The vehicle itself is pretty good. I do compare it to other vehicles of a similar caliber at the BR though. One of the things is the Centauro. Like, at this moment in time, the only thing this does better than the Centauro is that it does have an APF-SDS, even though it is a very weak APF-SDS. But the Centauro does get good heat, and then also has a good laser rangefinder, so that might be cancelled out on it, unfortunately. But the Centauro does everything else better. So that's a bit of a problem. Also, all of the IFVs that are around this BR they do have access to thermals, they do have access to tracks, so they might not get stopped as badly on stuff such as ice and also desert conditions, where this thing I'm pretty sure is just going to slow down to an absolute halt. They all have better gun depression, they all have ATGMs, so they deal with the extended theater. If you have to deal with long-range battles, you can do so. So I just compared it to all of those, and the only thing right now that it does better than them is the speed, and the speed might get taken away. So what are you left with? Well, you're left with a pretty decent gun platform and a vehicle that can scout, which is quite large and has no armor. So this could be a catastrophe, but it also could be very fun, depending on if they decide to change the engine. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Conte Baraka, Trigger Hippie, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Hosest Kishore, Hans, Bareen,